roguelite games. And but I think this, and I like the loop of it. It's a lot of fun. It gives flavor to the gameplay.
The talents and traits that do carry
really depends
over,
on how they do
this
it.
Passes to your next of kin upon death. It passes to your next character. So that is a roguelite progression.
But so
many games
you will lose if you die. You lose your character. You lose your kit, but you get the experience to be able to make the next character. You know what I mean?
do this. It's fairly common in the genre. You unlock various abilities or passive skills
so you're not
that
full
carry
reset.
from one character to the next. So maybe you have a good run and you get fairly far, you get a few solid upgrades, you run back to camp to store some of the weapons that you're carrying, you go back out, but if your character dies, everything you stored in camp stays there, and you carry over again that progression, that trait system through the bloodlines.
It's not a full
and different
reset,
roguelites will
especially
handle
if you
this
prepare
sort of
well
progression,
enough,
what you keep
and you
and
can
what you
keep
lose
going.
in different ways, but it's a fairly interesting way that they're describing of doing this,
What's up,
where
Living
you have
Legend?
the opportunity to keep some of what you've collected on a run outside of that bloodline trait system that carries over. And so yeah, there's a lot of looting that takes place in this game. We saw a bit of this in the trailer. We saw the player looting things off of bodies. We saw them pick up a skull cap, resources like light leather and steel ingots, as well as salt mineral, and these had different rarities to them as well. There was like common, uncommon, and rare. We also saw the player just straight up open a loot chest. This had a sword inside.
Nice.
It was
Uncommon,
of an uncommon
so
rarity.
there's
It
rarities.
had stat meters for different things. There was attack, handling, speed, and block, and also will look to be 2 unidentified enhancement slots,
Ooh,
which
look at that.
presumably you would identify and get some bonus
Different
perks from
perks.
them. But there was even
So some
more
flavor
than
on
looting
builds.
bodies and opening chests. We also saw the player pick up a bow off of the ground, which was then immediately equipped, and they used it before swapping with a radial menu back to another weapon. Now let's talk a little bit about the combat in this game. The developer has actually specifically described this game's combat as
How
a
you
hybrid
doing?
of Dark
Doing
Souls
better.
and
We
Mordhau.
we
Now,
got struck with the flu, and it wasn't so good. We had like chills and a fever at the same time. It was very sad.
Difference is
But
easy to
we're
figure
much
out
better
from
now.
what they've shown. It's also just so happens to be what people basically say when referencing just like modern day third-person action combat. You know, light and heavy attacks, a stamina bar,
this is like a
attack chain
test
combos,
to
dodging
see if I
and
can
blocking,
continually
all of
talk.
that standard
I
stuff.
tried-
But it's the Mordhau reference.
I tried yesterday to like just even talk to my roommate for just a few minutes, and through that I had to blow my nose a couple of times. I was hacking up, freaking phlegm constantly. It was like, I'm going to take a little bit, like another day. Coughing still hurt. So, I was like, one more day so I'm not sitting here, dying in front of you guys. But
That's
we're
quite
much
a bit
better.
surprising to me, mainly because Mordhau is a game with crazy levels of depth. I mean, here
Listening
is a
to a
list
lecture
of just some
here at
of the
school.
melee
Nice.
combat system things that you can do in Mordhau. They've got flinching, where your attacks are canceled if they are hit mid-animation. There's attack manipulation, where during any attack you can alter its trajectory, the way it's
Okay.
going. There are reverses and spins. Most melee combat games will have a parry system.
Mordhau
also
had a
has riposte,
great
where you
melee
can
system.
counter immediately after a parry.
Really,
there are
really good.
feints where you can cancel any attack early in its animation.
good Mordhau
There is
players
chambering, where
were
if you
fucking
attack in the
crazy.
same direction of an opponent's attack, you will deflect theirs and then counter with
I
yours.
never
there
practiced
are
the
morph
Mordhau.
attacks where you can change
But I
the
did
attack
see
type
how the
mid-animation.
depth in
They've
the
got
combat,
kicks.
it
There
was
are
great.
clashes
I think
where
it's always
identical
been,
attacks will counter and deflect off of each
generally
other. There's even a
accepted
disarm system
that
where if you're at low
Mordhau's
stamina,
combat
you can
was-
drop your
was
weapon.
really,
I mean,
really
it's
good.
it's absolutely crazy. Now, it's very hard to tell just from this initial trailer and what we've seen from this game's development, but I would be pleasantly surprised if Blight Survival has anywhere near the depth of melee combat as a game like Mordhau, because yeah, it's just absolutely insane. Very, very in-depth technical melee game, and that would be great if more games did stuff like that, even if it's just certain elements of it. They don't need that whole list, Also in the trailer, what was interesting was we saw this stealth section where the player was crouching and crawling past groups of humans that were NPCs that were chattering. I saw a lot of people being like, hey, that doesn't make sense. He's wearing plate armor. How is he being stealthy, and the developer actually touched on this in a Reddit thread where they're like, yeah, this was kind of just like a time restriction. Maybe you wouldn't be as stealthy crawling around in the mud with your
New
plate
God
armor.
of War,
And at the end of the stealth section, we also
potentially.
saw a stealth takedown,
no
which is
current
pretty
plans
neat. This
to.
game obviously has a way where you can surprise enemies and just kind of like instantly eliminate them. Now, in some of the development footage that they've shown as they've been making this game over the course of the past year, I'll touch on the development in a moment, but we saw some footage of their longbow in action. You know, it's a basic range attack, right? But what was really cool about this clip is it also showed that it appears like these projectiles will interact with certain objects in the environment and not just NPCs that you're trying to get a headshot
there was a
on,
lot
which
of
is a
drop,
nice little touch,
too.
a nice little detail. There have been a few other interesting systems that we've seen about the development of this game. This came
was
through
waving,
a post
so
of
there
theirs
might
on
be-
the Unreal Engine.
Was that a player? I don't know if that was a friendly or an enemy. Maybe it is Tarkov. In the sense, if this is Tarkov, melee, survival, I'm fucking about it. I don't know if there's PvP in this game. I assumed it was just a PvE roguelike. But if this is fucking melee zombie Tarkov bullshit, then yeah, I'm about this. With good melee combat, the Agartha game, I wanted it to be good. And I enjoyed my time with it. But no one else was interested in that game, sadly. And it had its issues, sure.
Subreddit.
I've watched a decent amount of Dark and Darker. It's a little dark. My biggest problem with Dark and Darker is the game's fucking dark. I got night blindness. You know what I mean? It is hella hard to see anything. Have you ever played Escape from Tarkov? I haven't, no. Never played Escape from Tarkov. I've been aware of it since like alpha. One of the old school bros tried to get me to play it. I'm more of a melee, even if I'm not that great at melee. I've always preferred melee over like guns, both in real life and in games, just because you get to see the whites of their eyes. You know what I mean? It's not a one-tap kill, 200 yards away. You never get to see, the enemy. So there's a lot more flavor in the combat. You know what I mean? There's a lot more. You're not stressed. There's no. If you see someone far away and you kill them, right? It is far, far different than them being 10 feet in front of you. You know what I mean? And that struggle to survive. So I've always preferred that dance of death.
They showcased a grab and a hostage system where you can hold onto enemies and use them as a shield, basically, temporarily to deflect projectiles, presumably, from other enemies. That was really neat. We've also seen various types of world interaction. So in the gameplay trailer, we noticed there was a shrine, which you could make an offering to. This presumably would give you like
Yo, what's up, Rail? Good to see you, my man.
There were also things
Much
in the
love,
environment that
18
you can
months.
interact
What a
with
badass.
to unlock some
What a
lore
bro.
in the game. But then another one of their development posts was them showcasing all of these different realistic interactions between opening and kicking open doors, picking up objects, and crawling through tight spaces. Just some really great looking and natural looking animation work. And then also the developer had mentioned in the game's subreddit that there will be some sort of customization visually. Someone asked if we'd be able to change the color of the knight's armor, and they replied that yes, customization will play a big role into this game. Now, next I want to talk about the development of this game, because this is where things actually get quite interesting. This game is being made by Haynear Studio, a development team, as I mentioned earlier, of 2 people who have made what we've seen so far. Now, in that fairly lengthy blog post where they described what this game is, they also touched a bit on the history of its development. Now, from that and some threads on Reddit, we learned that the game has been in development for roughly 1 year. Both members of the studio have been working on it in their spare time. One of them works in the industry as a gameplay and technical animator. The other one works as an animation director, and their hope now is to move on to make this like a full-time gig and add more people to the team. Now, if you're wondering, how is it possible for two people to make what we've seen so far? Because, yeah, this thing looks really good.
Yeah,
well, again,
good.
they both have extensive experience in the industry. They both currently work in the industry.
This is a side project of two dudes with a job, right? And they're like, this is what I want. I like it. So far, I like it. I don't know. It's multiplayer co-op. I don't know if there will be enemy players. One of the things about Dark and Darker that I have, one of the issues I have is queuing up versus three-mans constantly. I haven't played, but I played Agartha. I played other things. I really, 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 really dislike queuing into a game potentially solo, knowing that there's groups of threes. I've seen a bunch of YouTube videos of dudes, and we can go watch some Dark and Darker videos of dudes, some crazy full kitted out rogues. I've seen a drunken monk cleric build. I've watched a lot on Dark and Darker, and them taking out three-mans and things like that. But there's just something about it that I just at the core base of the game, that I just dislike, where I don't have the option to queue in, versus a bunch of 1v1v1 free-for-alls. You know what I mean? And I know it's the balance of the bosses, balance of the games, and things like this. But I do feel like there's a lot of people that play solo. And a lot of times I do. Bam, bam.
And are just doing this as part-time. But the other answer, simply put, is just Unreal Engine 5 is
so that's
amazing.
one of my other issues
when discussing
with
the
Dark
decision
and
to use this engine, the developer said,
if I were to play it,
looks
I wouldn't
amazing.
always have a group of three. And a lot of times I'd be up late playing solo and running into this game will be co-op, yes, up to 4. I don't know if I don't even think there will be any PvP in this game. I'm okay with it there not being any PvP in this game. There doesn't need to be. Not every game needs to be PvP to have fun. And playing with a couple of friends, a couple of you guys throughout the game, being able to play when there's no one to play with, is perfectly fine. You know what I mean? But as far as like Dark and Light goes, you're at an extreme disadvantage if I want to play the game, solo late at night or whatever on stream. And it's fucking dark. But I've watched a decent amount of Dark and Darker, and we may still play it when it launches, depending on what else there is to play. Unreal Engine 5 looks amazing right out the box. Oh, so this is on Unreal Engine 5.
Right out the box, and once you start tuning the knobs, you can fairly easily obtain impressive next-gen graphics. Now that we're aiming for the best quality possible, it was a no-brainer to opt for Unreal Engine. We also get to take advantage of all of their amazing assets, such as various libraries. As an indie developer, our budget is limited, so getting free access
a lot of
to
this is
high-quality assets
their
is
libraries.
a huge win. Unreal
they're
Engine
using a
also
bunch of
only
the
takes a 5% royalty once you earn
pre-made
more than
assets
$1
and
million
stuff.
USD, which is also a very attractive benefit. So yes, Unreal
What was
Engine is
that part?
limited.
The end part?
Discussing the decision easily obtained.
Is huge. Unreal also only takes 5% royalty once you earn more than $1 million USD. Oh, nice.
Impressive next-gen graphics. Now that we're aiming for the best quality possible, it was a no-brainer to opt for Unreal Engine. We also get to take advantage of all of their amazing assets, such as various libraries. As an indie developer, our budget is limited, so getting free access to high-quality assets is a huge win. Unreal Engine
get everything.
Also only takes a 5%.
Unreal Engine's amazing. Now, when you look at New World is built on Lumberyard, and that is Amazon's version of like an engine, and New World was supposed to be like, hey guys, look at this engine, and so other people will make games on it. I think lumberyard isn't terrible, but it's not built out, right? One of the huge issues with New World is that it was a bare bones engine, and the developers of New World literally had to make the libraries. They didn't have the libraries to play with, while people can jump on Unreal Engine 5, amazing graphics, huge libraries of assets. So these buildings, most likely these buildings were available to them. So they just had to plop them down, move some rocks around, plant some plants, maybe readjust some colors. You know what I mean? So it's and so that they can bring their vision to fruition with only 2 dudes in a year. That's the power of having all of that available to you. And if they make a good game, right? On the dudes who made Unreal Engine, they get a little cheddar continually, right? Which is awesome.
Percent royalty once you earn more than $1 million USD, which is also a very attractive benefit. So yes, Unreal Engine has just made it very easy for small development teams to make things that are quite impressive looking. And this thing, yes, it does look quite impressive. So the next question is, when can we play? Well, the unfortunate reality is no time soon. The game is currently in a pre-alpha state, and as it turns out, this gameplay reveal was largely aimed at drumming up interest in the concept to try to get funding and also to try to hire more people. They have said they want to keep a small development team, that they're not developing this large open world game. It's going to be very small in scope and focused on just quality gameplay loop, but nevertheless, yeah, they want to fund this thing and get more people
real
on
gameplay
the team.
trailer. It's a real gameplay trailer, but it's in the state
questions
to be
on
able
their
to show
threads.
off
You know, people were asking
what they've
when
been
there
working
would be
on
a roadmap for
to
development.
see, hey, is there interest in this game? What do you guys think? Is there interest in this game? Would you play this? You know, with the concept. They haven't mentioned any PvP. It's co-op. You know, roguelike. And is there people willing to help develop the game? There's only 2 of us. We got jobs. Is there someone willing to invest in this game? Do you like our vision? That's what this video is. You know what I mean? To put it out there and say, you know, they didn't do a Kickstarter, right? They didn't go on fucking GoFundMe, right? They put this out to say, let's see if it's a sales pitch, yeah. Is there interest in the thing we've been working on? And we'll see. I think a lot of people will be willing to help develop this game. They're not asking for money and to buy ships. Yeah, they're not saying that you can you know, get a special helmet, you know, for $500 if you help fund the game. You know what I mean? They want to look for venture capital money. They want to look for big investors, and they're looking for maybe a couple of people that would like to help make the game. Star Citizen
was, we'll
no, Star Citizen
is
it's still in the development phase. They're still adding features to it, but I believe, what is it, 2022? Yeah, it should be out in like a decade. But they're working on it.
Funding for the game. They were also asked, hey, when will this game be playable? To which they said, we don't have even a rough estimate before we've secured funding. So securing funding is their primary goal. That is what they're aiming for. In terms of what kind of funding, well, their response was they're unsure exactly, but they are leaning towards just trying to find a publisher. Not only would that bring the money, but that could also help with much of the business end of producing and publishing a game. And in that thread, they also said that they're open to crowdfunding of
Look at this. Publishers, simply because they can help with a lot of the not so creative part of the process, right? The business. They deal with all the things, so we can make we want to make this game. We need the people to help us do all the other things about it, right? The making the connections of figuring out what we got to do to be on Steam or Epic, right? Or you know, launching, doing all the legal bullshit. And the publisher's going to help us get us the money so that we'll help We'll do the hiring and the developing of the game because this is the game we want to make. Crowdfunding is a lot of work. It has bad rep these days. Respect. We're memeing on fucking buying ships and doing all this. They're like, we just want to make the game, guys. With all that said, we're open to all options. So as long as we get to make the game of our dreams. Props to you, bros. I support you.
And publishing a game. And in that thread, they also said that they're open to crowdfunding, but probably aren't going to go that route. It's a lot of work, but on top of that, it also has a bad rep nowadays, which I mostly agree, especially knowing that this game's only been in development for a year. Feels like opening up to crowdfunding could set up a lot of people for disappointment, especially if it takes another 2 or 3 years to actually build a full game.
Yeah, we want to make the game. We want time to make the game. Now, you get in bed with a publisher, that means release date. You know what I mean? They want return on their money, on their investment. So, like you don't get open-ended development time with that. But you should be able to get enough leeway to be able to complete it,
Because this was just a vertical slice. They've called it that themselves. This was just more like a proof of concept. On the other hand, though, that reveal trailer on IGN has already over 2 million views, and it's only been up for like 4 days. So even if it is just a vertical slice, clearly there's a lot of interest in that vertical slice. All in all, I think this game looks and sounds very cool, but it's also clearly very far off of release. I would not expect to get to play this even next year, maybe in 2024, but 2023 seems highly unlikely. But that said, I am happy to see a new interesting looking game. That is one of my favorite aspects of this hobby. There's just always something cool and new to look forward to be excited about and interested.
I wanted to share that with you guys. You're not going to be able to see this in a long time,